1 Corinthians chapter 13 is a chapter that many of you know. It's a chapter on love. It's a love chapter. And in it, Paul writes to the church in Corinth, and he tells us all about love and what love is. He says love is patient, all right? Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not arrogant. It's not rude. It does not insist on its own way. It's not irritable. Love is not resentful. Love doesn't rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices in truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails, and love never ends. The NIV says, love never ends. And then Paul goes on to this last verse, and he says in verse 13, now faith, hope, and love abide. These three. But the greatest of these is love. Now the entire chapter before this verse here in 13, Paul is talking about what? Starts with an L and it rhymes with dove. Paul is talking about love. All of the verses before, he is going through the attributes of love and what love is, and the attributes that are available or fruit or shown in the lives of the believer. If you truly love someone, all of these will be evident in your life. And then he gets to verse 13, and he says, so now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. You know, what? Wait a second. God, Paul, what are you talking about? You've been talking about love, and now you're throwing in faith and hope. How are those connected? You're not even talking about faith and hope. You're talking all about love. And now you say, so now faith, hope, and love abide? These three connected? These three joined together? These three inseparable? So now faith, hope, and love abide, these three. He says, no, the greatest of these is love, but these three are still connected. And we know that as we look for the next 3 weeks, starting today, we will look at faith takes hold of the promises today. And hope awaits for what is coming, the return of Jesus. Love endures through all of that. Love is special. Love has no end or beginning. Love endures all of it. Love is apparent. Love never goes away. Love never dies. Love exists through all of that. Faith is today. Faith is holding on today. Hope is taking hold of what is to come and the return of Jesus Christ. But love is greater than all of that because love has no end. But today we're going to talk first about faith. When I was a kid, I believed, and still do believe, but I really believed that God healed people. I had seen it. I had seen people get healed. I was young. My youth pastor gave me opportunities when I was younger to preach in our youth service, and we had a youth service one evening, and I was preaching that night. I don't remember what I preached about. It was probably, I'm just glad there's no audio recording of those things that I preached. But I remember at the end, we had an altar time for healing. I remember going down and laying hands on a young girl, and I say young, I'm sure she was my age back then, and God healing her. She had been deaf in one ear, completely deaf, and God healed her instantly, and she was able to hear out of that ear. And it changed me forever. I knew that God, you couldn't tell me God doesn't heal. I've seen it. I've experienced it. And so I wanted God to heal me of bad eyesight. How many ever prayed that prayer? God, heal me of my bad. No, I can see, we have glasses and contacts, and we're blessed that way. But I just want to wake up in the morning and just be able to see, And I think now God just calls that LASIK. I don't know. But I wanted God to heal me, and so the other day I get up and I wear contacts, and so I get up the other morning. It's maybe a week or two ago, and I go and I put in my contacts. I wear the contacts where you have to put in brand new ones every day. I have really dry eyes, and so I have to put these contacts in. So I open up the little container that it's in, and I reach in there and I put contact in my eye, and I look up, and I still can't see. In fact, it's almost like I see worse, and I have one hand over my eye, I'm looking at it, and I'm blinking, and then it hits me. I think God's healed me. And now I've put in a contact in my eye, and it's made my vision worse, because if I take it out, I'm going to be able to see perfectly. Come on, am I the only one that ever thinks? And so I reach in there, and I take my contact out, and lo and behold, I see clearly, perfectly. I mean, I look around, I'm going, woo! I almost had like a Jericho march right there in the middle of our bathroom, and I'm thinking, woo! And I look closer, and I realize I've got another contact in there. I had taken my contacts out, and those jokers had put in 2 contacts in that one little container, and I had put them both in, and I thought, well, that's that, but I had that moment. Faith. We declare that we have faith as believers. Some people think if I just had more faith, my prayer would be answered. Some people think if I can just convince God that I have more faith, that He'll hear me. Some people are even taught that if you're not healed or God doesn't answer your prayer, it's because you don't have enough faith. And all of those aren't true. None of those are true. So this morning, I want to go through 4 faith facts, okay? Faith facts. Number 1, we're going to look at Luke chapter 5, verse 4 and 5. It says, this is Jesus speaking, when he had finished speaking, he said to Simon, put out into deep water, let down the nets for a catch. And Simon answered, Master, we've worked hard all night and haven't caught anything. But because you say so, I will let down the nets. How many of you have ever felt that way? Simon Peter had been working all night long. He had worked himself to the bone. He was exhausted. He was tired. He was beyond tired. He just wanted to go somewhere and crash. And Jesus says, take your nets and put them out into the deep water. And Simon's going, I'm exhausted. I've already done it. How many of you have ever just been exhausted doing something? You can't move, that you've done it so many times and you've exerted yourself to the point where you have just run out of energy. And so happens to Simon Peter. He says, Lord, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I don't feel like it. In fact, I don't feel like doing it. I just feel like laying down right here. But because you asked, he said, I'll do it. Didn't matter how Simon Peter felt. He said, Lord, I'll obey you. How you feel shouldn't impact your faith. How you feel shouldn't impact the faith in your life. How many of you can control every circumstance in your life? How many of you have ever successfully controlled every single circumstance that you've run into in your life? Anybody? Why? They're not controllable. So many circumstances in my life and in your life are just uncontrollable. You can't do anything about them. They just happen. And depending on what circumstances are going on in your life is how we feel about something. So if the circumstance that you're facing is going good, you feel good. If the circumstances are bad, you feel bad. And so you may wake up feeling good. In an hour, you may feel bad. You may be up, you may be down, you may feel like you are full of faith, and the next second you're scared to death, wanting to hide under your bed. Or maybe you're just exhausted like Simon Peter. You've done all that you can, and the circumstances before you are just making you exhausted. Circumstances are out of our control. Circumstances are up and down. And yet, feelings are based on those circumstances. How you feel is based on what's going on in your life. That's why how you feel should not impact your faith. Emotions should have nothing to do with the faith that you have in your life. Romans 1:17 says, "For in the gospel of righteousness, God is revealed. A righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, the righteous will live by faith." The righteous will live by faith. But unfortunately, some of the righteous live by emotions. Some of the righteous live by how they feel at the moment. Some of the righteous rely on their circumstances to tell them how they should face the battles and circumstances. And they don't feel like it. They don't feel saved. They don't feel full of faith. They don't feel like doing anything else. You're scared. You're afraid. You're tired. And we let all of these emotions, we let all of these feelings control the faith in our life. But faith has nothing to do with feelings. It has nothing to do with emotions. When he says the righteous will live by faith, it means that every day of your life, every step that you take, every direction that you go, every room that you enter, every room that you leave, every road that you walk down, every day of your entire life, you are to live by faith. Not by your circumstances and not by your feelings, because those have nothing to do with the faith that has been planted in your life. So don't let emotions, don't let feelings control your life. Your faith isn't based on that. We always want to just, if we can taste it or it has anything to do with the physical realm or the senses we have, if you can taste it, touch it, smell it, that's when we believe. But faith isn't based on feelings or emotions, because faith is based on the things that you cannot see. You can physically see the circumstances you're facing in your life. You can physically see the results of emotions or battles or valleys that you're walking through. You can see that. But what you can't see is what's happening in the spiritual realm. And in the spiritual realm is where faith lives. Faith is a substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Faith exists outside of the physical realm and lives in a spiritual realm that you cannot see, you cannot touch, you cannot smell, you cannot hear. It is outside of all of those things, and so it makes it more difficult sometimes to believe, but it takes itself out of the realm of the physical. It takes itself out of the realm of emotions. It has already taken itself out of the realm of how you feel. It has nothing to do with that because it doesn't live in the physical realm. If it lived in the physical realm, faith would be easy because you could see it, you could touch it, you could smell it. That's not faith. That's just things are what they are. But faith you cannot see. Faith you cannot touch. And that's the power of faith. Faith is untouchable. And that makes it powerful. So you can't rely on your feelings. You can't rely on your emotions. They should not impact your faith. Number 2 this morning, because you have so little faith, this is in Matthew chapter 17, because you have so little faith, I tell you the truth, if you have the faith as small as a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move from here to there, and it'll move. Nothing will be impossible for you. Nothing is impossible for you. I've got in my hand right here a mustard seed. Do you see it? You don't know whether I've got a mustard seed or not. It's not like a coconut. If I held a coconut up here, you would know I had a coconut. A mustard seed, though, is tiny. A mustard seed is so small, you have to get so close to see it. And I used to struggle with this verse in my life. If you have the faith, the grain of a mustard seed, you can say to this mountain, move, and the mountain will move. And I used to think, Lord, I don't have any faith. If it only takes the grain of a mustard seed to tell this mountain to move, I'm missing something. I don't have the faith that I need. But that's not how God meant you to read that verse. Jesus meant for you to read the verse like this. If you have faith, the grain of a mustard seed, so small, so tiny, that you can't even see it, you could move that mountain. Now just think what you can do with the faith that He's deposited in your life. See, it's not that your faith is smaller than a mustard seed. It's that the very least amount of faith would move a mountain, and you have far more than that. That's why He says nothing will be impossible for you. Well, you've just told me if I had the grain of a mustard seed, I could move a mountain, and I'm not moving mountains, God. He said, that's not the point. Nothing will be impossible for you because the faith that has been planted in your life through Jesus Christ far exceeds any mustard seed. It far exceeds the size of a small seed in your life. It's bigger than that. It's more than that. It's not that you don't have enough faith to say move that mountain. It's that you have more faith than that. I mean, just think about that. What are you facing? What circumstances, what battles, what valleys are you walking through in your life right now? If you can have the faith, the grain of a mustard seed, and move a mountain, what is it in your life that you think God can't do? What is it in your life that if we can move a mountain, who could move a mountain? With all the technology, could we move a mountain at all in the physical realm? And yet, whatever you're going through, whatever you are facing, God has given you and planted within you enough faith to tackle and accomplish all that you need. That's good. Faith solves the impossible problems in our life. God works in your life based on your faith. How much do you think you need? How much do you think you need in your life? Faith doesn't make God do what you want. God isn't a genie that you try to convince Him to grant you a wish in your life. If you're one of those people that passes around those things on Facebook that says something along the lines of, send this on to 5 of your other friends and God will answer your prayer, stop it. God's not a genie. God's not up in heaven counting how many friends you're forwarding that stuff to. That's silly. That's nonsense. Our God is a powerful God. Our God has placed faith and has planted it inside of your life. He is there. He is put it there. He doesn't wait. He goes, okay, that's 1 friend, that's 2 friends, that's 3 friends, 4. If He'll just give it to one more friend. Faith takes hold of what God has already promised. The faith has been planted in your life through the person of Jesus Christ. Empowered by the Holy Spirit in your life. You have what you need in your life to see God work in your life. Don't fall into this trap that you're trying to earn God's favor, or that you're trying to convince Him you have enough faith, or you're trying to do enough. You're just falling back to works. And works don't save us. Matthew 9:29, Jesus said then he touched their eyes, saying, be it done to you according to your faith. Faith determines what God can do in your life. Number 3. Yeah, that was number 2. Okay, so number 3. Hebrews 11:6 says, and without faith it is impossible to please Him. For he who comes to God must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who seek Him. Pleasing God requires faith. If you want to be someone who pleases God, faith must be evident in your life. Without faith, it's impossible to please Him. You want to please God? Express your faith. And here's what faith is not. Faith is not how, remember, let's go back to how you feel. Faith is not a feeling. Faith is not an emotion. Faith is an action that takes place in our life. Faith is an action, and that action is obedience. When you obey, you are putting in activity, you are putting into action faith that you have. If you just talk about it, that's not faith. You want to please God, step out in faith. You want to please God, obey Him. And when you do that, you please Him. That's why James says in 2:18 and 19, show me your faith without deeds, and I'll show you my faith by my deeds. You believe that there's one God? Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder. It's like, well, you can say it till you're blue and I have faith. So what? I don't want to hear it. God doesn't want to hear it. In fact, God says, so what? The demons believe that. The demons in hell believe. It's not enough that you believe. The difference between us and them is obedience. The demons cannot obey. They can believe. They know there's a God. They know faith works. They know that God has planted in you and I the seed of faith through the person of Jesus Christ. They know that. That doesn't make us any better than them knowing it or saying it. What makes a difference is putting that faith into action. That's faith. Faith without action is just words, and that's not worth anything. You're on the same level as demons at that point. How many know that's low? That's low. But when we step out and we put that faith into action, that's the issue. The issue in your life is obedience, not the words that I have faith. That's why James says, show me your faith without deeds, and I'll show you my faith with my deeds. Romans 14:23 says, but the man who has doubts is condemned if he eats, because eating is not of faith, and everything that does not come from faith is sin. You want to please God? Be someone who obeys, someone who puts their faith into action. Everything else we're told in Romans, well, all the rest of that is just sin. See, the devil wants you to believe that the world has the answer to all of your problems. The world wants you to believe that no matter what you're facing, they have the answer. And there's truth to that if you're talking physical. There are all kinds of self-help books that you can read that will probably have a positive impact on your life. There are probably a lot of secular psychology books that if you read about self-worth and it's probably going to benefit you. But that's not the answer to your life. The answer to your life is found in Jesus Christ. God wants you to know that all you really need is in the person of Jesus Christ. And if you believe on Jesus Christ, all that you need becomes deposited, becomes that seed that gets put down into your life. The world does not know and will never know what it is that we need. The world can only have answers to what is physical. The world can only promise answers to that which you can see, touch, taste, smell, or hear. But the real need, not only in our life, but in this community and in your family, in this country, is spiritual. And only that, only answer that comes, the only answer to the spiritual comes from Jesus Christ. So pleasing God requires faith. Number 4, lastly this morning. Ephesians 6:16 says, in all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. Successfully resisting the devil requires faith. This is an interesting verse. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith with which you can extinguish all of the flaming arrows of the evil one. How many know that everything that is in God's Word is there for a reason? We believe God's Word is inspired. So there's a reason why this word flaming arrow is here. This word flaming as a descriptive of arrows. Not just any arrows. The enemy isn't just shooting arrows at you. He is shooting flaming arrows at you. But here's the interesting thing about flaming arrows. They're terrible. I mean, honestly, if you're going to be shot with an arrow, who cares if it's flaming? An arrow is going to kill you regardless of whether it's flaming or not. In fact, arrows that are flaming shoot terrible. They have terrible aerodynamics. They don't shoot as far. They're not nearly as accurate. And most of the time when they shoot them, the flame goes out. It's just a bad thing all the way around, but they serve a purpose. Whereas for you and I, it really doesn't matter if you're shot with an arrow that's flaming or whether you're shot with an arrow that's not. Dead's dead. And really, if the arrow's going to go in you, you're probably, by the time it gets inside, you've probably put it out because it's gone inside you. But that's not the purpose of arrows. That's not the purpose of flaming arrows. The purpose of flaming arrows has nothing to do with you. Flaming arrows are used as a distraction. Flaming arrows are used because they look scary. They're meant to cause panic and disruption. So if they had a siege, they would bring out the flaming arrows and they would shoot them. Remember, they had to get closer. They're not nearly as accurate. But they would get as close as they could. They would use the flaming arrows to try to start a fire somewhere in where the siege was taking place. They tried to catch roofs on fire, buildings on fire, because if they could do that, they could cause panic. They could cause people to be distracted so that they're no longer looking at the enemy. They're no longer fighting the enemy. Now they're fighting a fire. Now they're fighting something else. Panic has broken out across all of those that are fighting this battle because the arrows that are coming at them are now flaming. Because they're not coming directly at you. They're going all around you. So you're turning this way, you're turning there. They're causing panic. They're causing disruption in your life. And this is what the enemy wants for you. You see, you can extinguish all the flaming arrows of the evil one. He is shooting arrows at you that are flaming to distract you, to cause you to panic, to quit looking at the battle that's before you and try to get you to look left or try to get you to look right, to throw you off guard. He uses these flaming arrows as a distraction instead of having you focus on the battle that is right before your eyes. But faith extinguishes those arrows. The shield of faith only works when you're facing forward. If the enemy can get you distracted, if he can cause you to panic, if he can begin to get you to look at other circumstances at your life instead of looking and realizing that the battle you're facing is actually a spiritual battle, and he can start gossip over here or envy over here or disunity over here, and the enemy can get you to quit looking at the actual enemy that is before you, you take that shield of faith and you turn this way because there's fire over here. Well, what happens at that point? You're wide open. You're open to whatever comes your way. No longer is that shield of faith effective because you have turned from where the enemy is attacking you to look and be distracted by what he is causing over here or over here or over here. Don't let the enemy distract you from the battle that you're facing, and that battle is him. Maybe the battle that you're facing is that spiritual battle. The enemy would like nothing more than to have you turn away from the battle that's before you. Be confident. Be assured. Have faith. That's why it's so important not to be driven by emotions or feelings when it has to do with your faith. Because that's what the enemy wants. Going back to the very beginning, our faith shouldn't be based on our feelings, because that's how the enemy gets you distracted. If he can get you to believe that the faith that you have is based on how you feel, you're already on the losing end of that battle, because you have gotten distracted. And now you're feeling panicked, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're feeling confused. But faith has nothing to do with the feelings. Faith is found in the person of Jesus Christ, who lives in you. And if you have him living inside of you, you don't have to worry about how you feel about it. You don't have to worry about how you woke up in the morning. You simply have to take hold of the promises, take hold of what has already been planted in your life. Promises are promises. God's promises are your promises. He hasn't given you a promise and told you, I hope you have enough faith to see it fulfilled in your life. God's promises are there. There's thousands of promises in God's word that apply to your life, and they're yours for the taking. They have been deposited in you. Why it says in 1 John 5:4, for everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that has overcome the world, faith. Listen to it again. For everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world. And this is the victory that has overcome the world, faith. If you are born of God, if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, if he lives inside of you, you will overcome the world. And this is the victory. He says this is the victory. Faith. Faith. The victory to overcome the world is faith. Not feelings. It's faith. You want to be an overcomer? Take hold of the faith that God has planted in you. You want to be victorious? Take hold of the faith that God has planted in you. Don't let the world tell you that you cannot overcome the world. Don't let the world tell you that you're not going to be victorious in this fight, in this circumstance in your life. You have overcome the world. And this is the victory that has overcome the world. It is our faith. So what is it? What is it today that you need to overcome? It's your promise. It's your promise to take hold of. Everyone who has been born of God overcomes the world. What is it that you need to overcome in your life? What is it the enemy has convinced you don't have enough faith to see happen? What has the enemy distracted you with that has kept you from focusing on the real battle that lies before you?